Welcome to FPLUSA Press Play. We are the official audio home of the hashtag FPLUSA community. It's just two out of the three hosts, Bux and Blackwolf, here for the banter, as our colleague and partner in crime, Brian Chin, he's flying to New York to visit me for a work trip and for a wedding. We're going to be getting fat on pizza and bagels starting tomorrow evening. Dan, Blackwolf, how you doing, baby?
I'm doing good. I'm really excited that FPL is back, albeit I've realized I have not missed the stress that it causes during the weekends, and I have not missed the lack of sleep from my West Coast brotherhood, me and Brian. And I'm also jealous that you guys are meeting this week, sorry. It's about time me and you met, Bux.
I know. We got to schedule a face-to-face drinking, eating FPL bonanza in the not too distant future. We got to make that happen.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, game week one officially in the books. We've got 10 matches out of the 380 matches of the season done and dusted. We survived. I don't think it was all fun, but it was a successful game week one, wasn't it?
For many people, it was. There were some swings here and there that caused a little bit of stress, like I said earlier. But all in all, it was really good to have FPL back. It was really good to have Premier League football back. I've missed it a lot. The Euros was great, but it's just not the same.
No, the Premier League is top. It's the class of the sport for a reason, in my opinion, and that's why we love it so much. And FPL just brings a additional level of investment and fandom into the picture. If you are a diehard soccer, as we call it here in the US, or footy fanatic around the world, because this is a global podcast. And with that, Dan, let's highlight the manager who topped the charts, who's leading the table right now in our Press Play pod premiership. This is the free to enter mini league that we are running. And the overall winner after 38 game weeks will receive a kit of their choosing for free on the three hosts. And we just got the Manchester United away kit to Sultan, who won last year. He's based in Leicester, so he's a Man U fanatic based in Leicester. He probably enjoyed this weekend more than most. And we're looking forward to getting some social proof of concept from Sultan in the coming days. So, Dan, who's top of the table?
Currently, top of the table, we have a Mr. Leonov Andre. And he, I believe, is from, where is that? Brunei Darussalam? What country is that? I have never heard of that in my life.
Yeah,
But
Brunei. That's in the Middle East, I believe.
is it? Well, that's where he's from. He's top of the table. He actually played his triple captain on No, it wasn't Mo Salah. It was Isaac, and he got 102 points this week. He got points across the board. His entire team returned apart from Solanke, and he currently leads the league. And
102 points. That's a way to start a campaign in triple digits. Let's just transition. We highlight the good, which is Leonov's score of triple digits. There were a number of triple digit finishers in our mini league, which is very impressive for you managers. Not as impressive are mine and your scores, let alone Brian's. How'd you finish out, Black Wolf?
Yeah, I'm currently bottom of the totem pole of the three hosts, which is what happened last season, and I ended up pulling it back, so I'm not too worried. I finished on 60 points, which is pretty much average. I'm sitting at 3 million out of 8-9 million players, and rank doesn't really matter at this point. I was really saved by Pedro Porro's goal today, because before that I was having a really sucky game week. I'm someone that went with the Solanke and Kwanzaa combination rather than someone like Trent and Chris Wood, which turned out to be a little bit of a fail. And Nkunku, also a little bit of a fail coming off before the 60th minute. But other than that, I got some decent returns across the board, and I'm pretty happy with 60.
Yeah, I'm just 1 point better than you. I'm 61 points. Again, very mediocre. The game week really came down to if you had Salah or not, and then if you had him captained or not, you had
Yeah,
a flying start to the season. Neither of us had Salah. Is that correct?
correct. And there are some
Uh,
people out there that had like Havertz, Jota, Salah, Gvardiol, Trent, they had all of these guys that all returned. So there are some people in the FPL community that are sitting really pretty right now.
Ain't that the truth? A lot of Nolland owners have really big scores to pat themselves on the back for in game week one. We should just highlight Brian, our co-host. He's top of the table right now. I think betting man would say that won't continue. He's on 72 points, so he's doing quite nicely. That Havertz swap last minute is looking like a real coup for our co-host Brian. With that, I think it's time to get into the roundup. Let's hit the rewind button and let's take our first break. When we come back, we'll talk about the notable happenings in game week one.
And we are back. Now let's start with the United and Fulham game. It finished 1-0 to Manchester United. It wasn't the most exciting opening game, but especially if you were a Bruno owner, because he really blue balled all of his owners again.
Yeah, he had two huge chances. I felt like I was saying Bruno is not a great choice to a lot of mini leagues and chats that were on for FPL hardcore managers. And man, he made me look pretty silly because he was playing the false nine. He had a expected XG of over 1, which means the fact that he didn't at least get any returns is pretty mind-boggling. He had two one-on-one chances with Burnt Toast Leno, and he blew both of those.
Yeah, he's one of the favorites in the analytical community. I know that. Most of the analytical managers have Bruno just because he's always there, he's always creating, he's always getting chances. But if you're a grass manager, like he's just a nightmare to own. He just, like I said, he constantly blue balls you, constantly looks like he's going to score and comes away with 3 points. I like him as a pick, but I wouldn't pick him purely because of how much stress he causes me.
Yeah. I don't he had that one season where he was got like 13
Yeah.
penalties, and since then he's been a quality player, but he's one of those guys that's probably better in real life than he might be for FPL. Two guys that did make a pretty big impact were Garnacho and Xerxes, both coming off the bench as super subs. Garnacho 6.5 million. I think that is frustrating that he didn't get the start based on how he has been looking. He gets an assist and he really should have scored. So again, he's another Manchester United player who might have big expectations from the community for FPL points. And he nearly had a haul. He puts that right boot right, and he's looking at double-digit points, even in just 25 minutes off the bench.
Yeah, and if you're a Bruno owner, you're finally going to have a striker who can actually finish the chances. And they have some half decent fixtures from an attacking perspective coming up. So I do really like the Bruno pick, and I think if you do have him, you need to keep him. He's one of those players that I think you have to keep for a little bit of an extended period of time because he will return at some point and it will be a 15 pointer. You just know it. So I think just stay a little bit patient. I think they're going to get some returns.
Yeah. Did you watch that game? Were you impressed by their new signing, Mazraoui, who, unlike Delict, came right into the starting lineup and played right back? He's 4.5 million and he got the full bonus. So he ends up on 9 points, which is a great return if you were bold enough to go there.
Yeah, he looks really good. And just to call out, I think he actually finished on 8 points because I don't know if you saw the rules changes this season, but apparently now bonus points can change until 1 hour after the final game. So even bonus points that were given out on Friday can still change. I saw just before we started podding, Gvardiol has gone from 6 points to 7 points.
Wow.
Overnight. So yeah, you have to keep your eye on these bonus point scores for the entire weekend.
Wow.
But either way,
FPL Towers playing
yeah,
tricks this season. They're trying to avoid that Solly March fiasco that we had a couple seasons past.
Exactly. But either way, he looks really good. He's actually the most brought in asset, I believe, this week. So it looks like he might be the first player who gets a price rise to that 4.6 million. But, I don't know if people have looked at the Manchester United fixtures, but I don't think they're great from a defensive perspective. So I would not advise going there.
Yeah, game week 2 transfers are ill-advised in general, but I don't know if Mazraoui is the 4.5 horse to pick of the bunch. Let's transition to the next match. Ipswich, welcome to the Premier League. You get a home match against one of the best teams in the league, Liverpool. And Ipswich looked like they were really up for it in that first half. Let's just give credit where it's due. It's been 22 years since they were in the Premier League, and that first half looked like they belonged, but I think they just ran out of gas, and the class of Liverpool's squad just shined through in that second half. Mo Salah, he's the king for a reason. He ends up on a goal, assist, and 3 bonus points for 14 points. Many managers had him captain, so that's 28 massive points into your locker. He's the best ever Game Week 1 Premier League player. He now has 9 goals on the opening match of the season. That is best all time. He passes legends like Frank Lampard, who had 8. And yeah, perfect start if you went with Mo Salah and you gave him the armband. That's a good way to start hot to stay hot.
Yeah, and I think there was a lot of concern before game week 1 from the final preseason game that Mo Salah was kind of hugging that touchline, but I think he's proven yet again that he's not hugging the touchline. He's getting a lot of chances. He's creating a lot of chances now. He's taking a lot of shots, which means that he's now also good for bonus points. We saw that he got 3 bonus points this game, where I think maybe last season or the season before it could have been 1 or 2 bonus points and Trent would have got them all for his chance creation. So I think Mo Salah is an amazing asset. I very nearly went there until Oscar Bob got injured, but I do admit I would not have captained him, so I'm not too disappointed. But he's just an insane asset. We
Yeah,
can't deny
sliding
that.
doors moment. We'll see how Holland performs against Ipswich at home in game
Exactly.
week 2. And then we could really close the book on whether Nolland or No Mo was the way to go to start this season.
The thing that really pissed me off in this game was Kwanzaa, because I brought him in because I got told by many Liverpool fans that he is nailed. And to be fair, they were correct. He started the game. But then he got hooked off at half time, and it looks like Slot said that he did that for tactical reasons because
Oh, he
Kwanzaa
threw him
was,
under the bus.
yeah,
He
threw him
he
into
and
the
then he
bus
backed it
totally.
up. He backed it up to run over him again.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is a young player, and to be told in the first game week of the season by your manager that he lost too many duels and got taken off at half time, I'm not sure I like that from Slot, and it doesn't look good for Kwanzaa going forward. Sure, there's every chance he starts game week 2, starts game week 3, but there's enough doubt there for me now to think that I have to sell him. I would prefer not to do it for game week 2, but I'm looking at the price changes, and his price is getting very close to dropping, so we'll see what I do there.
Yeah, 1 pointer for the lad. Trent, on the other hand, looked brilliant. I thought he had
Insane.
a clean sheet, gets 2 bonus points. He ends up on 8 points. He's the most expensive defender for a reason. And on any other day, I think he gets a haul because Jota was that was one of the chances of the game week that were blown, similar to Bruno's misses. He had that header served up on a silver platter, and Jota just put that wide. He's one of the best, most clinical finishers in the league, let alone in the world. And so he only ends up with a goal, but we should have had another for managers who skipped Mo. And so that's 8 points versus 14 for those of you who are math professionals.
Yeah, I think out of every single asset in the game, he's the one I'm most jealous of not owning. He's terrifying to watch if you don't own him. So I think at some point I'm going to try and get him in because he just looks insane because he's back to his right back position now. So he's creating all of those chances. He's getting that angle that he likes to play that cross in from. And he's just creating chance after chance after chance. And he's also getting in shooting positions. And he takes free kicks. So this guy's going to get so many hauls. And I feel stupid actually for not putting him in my team.
Yeah, I think Trent is probably a safe bet for 180 points this season. If I had to put a number on it, wouldn't
Yeah,
you
yeah.
say?
I think so. We know you like numbers.
Yeah, that's definitely my strength. Let's go to Arsenal against your team. Not much good to say about Wolves other than Mosquera and his must grab assing, I think.
Yeah.
How do we want to spin this?
I mean, it was close to sexual assault. Let's be honest here. He just grabbed.
Well, he got away with a real assault. He like choke slammed Havertz at one point in that game.
Yeah, I mean, he chokeslammed Havertz and then he stuck his finger up Gabriel Jesus's butt. So I don't know what's going on with this guy. But,
New
you know,
favorite player?
I love him. He's a, so much shithousery from this guy. He's insane. He's a madman. And he looks pretty decent, to be fair. So I like him. But yeah, this game went as I predicted. I think Arsenal just dominated us. They were much better than us. Kai got 1 goal, 1 assist, 3 bonus points for 12. Saka got a yellow card, which dropped him to 2 bonus points, but he still finished on 12. So I think people that went with the three Arsenal assets from the start, they're gonna they're gonna get a few points over these next few game weeks.
I think that clean sheet was basically locked from like halftime on. They had one or two good chances, Wolves did in the first half. And then after that, it was like cruise control for Arsenal, which was
Yeah.
a little surprising for me.
I will say that they did look slightly shaky at the back at times, and I think if they were playing a team who was more clinical than Wolves, because Wolves looked a little rusty, I think they would have conceded. So, I'm not as confident right now in the Arsenal defense as I was. But, they're going to prove everyone wrong. They're going to keep a bunch of clean sheets, I'm sure.
Yeah, they were the clear favorite for a clean sheet and they delivered on that promise. Next up, Newcastle at Southampton. Now, I think this wins the award for the shithouse match of game week 1. And we have this fucker. Shar heard me say some nice things about him on a previous podcast, saying he might actually be worth the premium price of 5.5 million. And he went around, he was the butthead doing headbutts. Fuck this guy, because a lot of the community had Isak as captain, and I was doubled up on their attack with Isak and Gordon. I can't even complain that much because if you owned Isak and Jacob Murphy, you were really hard done because Shar gets this silly red card. It was always a red card. It was very soft, but you cannot clash heads with another player. And I know. If I would be frustrated too, but the fact that Murphy is the one that gets the hook for a one pointer when I thought he was looking pretty good, that is a brutal noodle to say the least.
It is. I mean, Isaac and Murphy were looking good for getting a couple of returns in this game. And then Shah went ahead and did that. You know, he's such a pain in the ass to own. He fucked me over last season, as I said earlier on. And he's done it again to his owners already. Just stay away from that guy. He's a nightmare. He'll come with this insane goal once in a while, but most of the time he's just yellow card after red card after injury. Fuck
I
this
think
guy.
my big takeaway from this match was one that Newcastle defense and with Pope in goal might be a team worth investing in. And
Definitely.
second is that Southampton are so clearly the best team that came up in the bunch because they can produce attacking rhythm. And I was really impressed with BBD. I thought we saw a lot from Armstrong and just in general, they look like they will stay up if they can keep game week 1 type performances going forward. They had a lot of chances on goal, and on XG they won this match by like threefold. They truly outperformed Newcastle after that red card happened.
Yeah, a couple of points to make here. First of all, on Newcastle, I think we saw the news today that Bruno Guimaraes has been given the captaincy at Newcastle. It's no longer Trippier. And Trippier actually started for the Newcastle under 21s today. So I think all signs are pointing to him either leaving or not being, definitely not being first choice anymore. So I just kind of wish we knew who was more nailed out of Lewis Hall and Livramento. Because with Burn there, and when we get people like Botman back, and if they sign a centre back, I don't know who's going to make way there. Is Burn going to move to left back? Is Burn going to say centre back? I don't know. But Newcastle defence looked pretty good. And then going to your point, I think Southampton were a much better side than we gave them credit for. Fair play to someone called FPL SWAT on X because he said Southampton are going to set up defensively. They're going to probably play five at the back and they're going to not be as much of a pushover as everyone thinks they're going to be. And they proved him right because they look pretty good.
I think it would have been a different result if it was 11v11,
Yeah,
but
maybe.
BBD, Armstrong, and then I thought Kyle Walker Peters, all three of those guys look like they might have FPL value at some point during the season.
Yeah, I'd like to see them play at home. When they're playing at home against weaker opposition, I think that's when we can really judge what kind of team we're looking at here.
Totally agreed. Next up, this might be a team that's in big trouble, and that's Everton. They lose at home. This is going to be the last season they're at their stadium, Goodison Park, before they transition to the new and shiny home, potentially in the championship next season because it was that bad. They got
You called
smashed by
this.
Brighton 3-0. And this could be a major issue if you're an Everton supporter because not only is the current ownership in shambles, but this squad without Jared Branthwaite anchoring the defense, might be in shambles also. And now Ashley Young does Ashley Young things. He looks like an old man and gets his dumb red card when the game was already out of sight. Yeah, this scary days if you're an Everton supporter.
I mean, we called it on the last pod. We said without Jared Branthwaite, this defense is just not the same because a lot of people were going for Mikalenko. You know, they actually conceded four, but one of them was ruled out for offside, I
Yeah, ruled
believe.
off. I saw that.
So this could have been a 0 pointer for their defenders. I think Pickford is maybe still a decent option because of the amount of saves he's going to get. But now they've increased his price to 5. I just wouldn't go there. I wouldn't touch Everton right now.
I think they might concede most games. That's why I skipped Pickford myself. I think if you're going for a £5 million goalkeeper, Pope is so clearly the pick over Pickford. Just the quality of team and the healthy bodies that are around them. But let's talk about Brighton because I think they're doing killer business in the transfer window. Their new signing, Minte, who came from Newcastle, he looks brilliant. He had an assist. He was on 4 points. He was causing havoc all over the pitch. And then old man River, both we had a sighting of Danny Welbeck, who he had a goal, assist, and 3 bonus points for 12 very valuable FPL points at 5.5 million. João Pedro blanks. So that's a big sliding doors of 10 points for the old man. And then who's playing right back? Who's playing left back in this system? 23-year veteran. Who was it, Dan? It wasn't Barco, was it?
No, it was James Milner, and I think that surprised a lot of people. There are many managers out there, including myself, that brought in Barco at 4 million because I thought he had a great preseason. He's clearly favorited in that position, and then for him not to get any minutes and for James Milner to play there was quite a shock for me. I don't know if he was carrying some kind of niggle or something, so I'd like to see what happens in the next couple of game weeks. But that was a shock.
Yeah, it seems there is some issue behind the scenes, whether with fitness or sickness for Barco. So I'd still hold out hope. He's 4 million.
Yeah.
He's the easiest kind of player to bench. And I'm hopeful that he'll get the start in game week 2 because he's literally going against the corpse of James Milner. So if he's not better than that guy, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, I saw that. I believe the Brighton manager was like 9 years old when James Milner made his Premier League debut. So that is just an insane stat to me.
Yeah, Hoitzler, or however you pronounce his name, he's 31. He'd be the youngest co-host on this podcast, let alone the youngest manager in the Premier League.
Oh God, that's sad.
Let's go quickly through the next two. Bournemouth Forest. This is 1-1. Wood gets his goal. He's just some player. When he's fit and he's starting, he had one shot, one goal, 3 bonus points. You love to see it if you went there for an FBL manager. 9 pointer.
I mean, this guy is just so clinical. Like you said, one shot, one goal, 3 bonus points. He doesn't have to do anything the entire game. He just has to get one chance. He'll convert it. He'll come away with almost a haul. So he's a great asset. I almost went there and I kind of wish I did.
Yeah,
However,
Brian talked me out of it, actually. I
I
had
know.
like 7 drafts with Wood, and then he was like, "Oh, you're really hard on Wood, aren't you?" He's making some sexual innuendo.
I
And
mean, he's usually trying to get you to have wood, so I'm not sure why
yeah,
he's
normally he
speaking you out
brings
of
the
it this time.
lotion. This time he brought the sandpaper.
Oh God, horrible image. Just to add, they've just signed, or they're about to sign, likely Eddie Nketiah from Arsenal. So I'd be curious to see what that does for Wood's minutes. So just a word of caution there.
I think he's still good for their opening 3 matches where
Yeah,
the fixtures line up beautifully for Forest. What didn't line up beautifully was Danilo's leg because he got taken out, and that was a horror injury that had shades of Gordon Hayward or Kevin Ware if you're a basketball fan here in the States. It looked like his leg was going a couple different directions. And of course, Forest doctors come out and they say, oh, it's just going to be 3 months. Good fucking luck. I would be dead with a similar injury if that happened to me.
yeah. His leg was pointing at like 90 degrees. That was just really nasty. So
So
yeah,
gross.
not good to see, especially for the first game week. You got to feel bad for the guy.
Yeah, that totally sucks. And then what didn't suck was Semenyo rewarding anyone who went there. He's an out of position 5.5 million mid, similar to BBD, plays on maybe a slightly better, maybe same level club without Solanke there. He gets a goal and bonus points. That's 8 points. I would absolutely take 8 points from any of my starters in game week 1. So I'd feel happy about that if you took the risk on Semenyo. West
Next,
Ham, Aston Villa, the Claret and Blue Derby. Onana, who's the new record signing for Aston Villa, starts the game off by just heading the ball unchallenged in front of Areola. Like it was just standing there, Areola. That was really bizarre. Paqueta, he does Paqueta things. He scores a penalty. Of course, he gets a yellow card
yeah,
for his
shocks
buddies
no
at
one.
home that bet on it. Yeah, love to see that. That guy's all about the team. And by the team, I mean his circle of friends that are betting on him to get a yellow card, not necessarily Aston Villa or not necessarily West Ham. And then John Durant gets the game winner. He subbed on for Ollie Watkins, who I think it's fair to say looked tired. He looked like he wasn't fully up to match fitness. And yeah, that was the difference. John Durant gets the winner. Suchek misses a tap in to equalize at the death.
Yeah, I think there's two really good takeaways from this game. First of all, is Watkins. Yes, he got subbed off because he was tired from the Euros, but I think now that they're going to be in the Champions League, now that they have a backup in Duran, who's a very, very good striker, we might see Watkins not necessarily playing 90 minutes every single game like we used to. I still think he's an amazing asset, but I don't think he's going to be as elite as he was last season. And the second thing was Morgan Rogers. He's only 5 million in FPL. He played the entire 90 minutes. Yes, he blanked, but he looked very, very good. He had two chances created. He had two shots when he played behind Watkins. He wasn't on the wing. He was in that 10 position, getting a lot of chances and creating a lot. So, I'm happy to own him going forward. I think he's going to get a lot of minutes.
Yeah, that was a good pick, and he looks like good value for FPL. Next, Brentford hosted Palace, a London derby. This is a brutal swing for FPL. This is FP hell, to say the least, because Eze scores a beautiful free kick, only for it to be chalked off by the ref blowing the whistle before the ball ripples the back of the net, so VAR cannot intervene. That was Charmin level soft, that
So
call. I mean,
stupid.
that stands, I think, if the ref doesn't donkey punch his whistle. And that sucks because 2 minutes later, Mbomo is blazing down the pitch and he slots home the opening goal from Wissa. So Mbomo gets 2 bonus points. He ends up on 9 points. Tony doesn't even feature. So we now know that Mbomo is likely to be the penalty kick taker, and he is truly the talisman for Brentford. So he is an excellent FPL asset at 7.5 million. Another great asset from Brentford is Wissa. He gets a goal assist. He gets a yellow card, of course, but he gets 3 bonus. So that's 11 points for the 6 million man up top.
For sure. I think a lot of people are going to own Mbumo in the next few weeks, especially when their fixtures really turn and they have a nice run. He's just such a good FPL asset, especially with Tony not there when he's on penalties. So if he's not in my team in the 5, 6 game weeks, I'll be very shocked.
Yeah, game week 5, everything turns green in the fixture ticker for
Yeah.
Brentford. And I think he'll be a very popular asset. I don't know if we could wait till then, because if you remember last season, I think he had like 15 returns in the first 11 game weeks. It was mental, the tear that he was on. And he looks like he's picking right back up where he left off.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the final thing is Munoz from Palace. He got the assist on the own goal. I mean, he's so attacking. He's basically a right winger. You get lucky if you get a clean sheet for Palace, and you'll be happy with those points. But I think he's kind of similar to Pedro Porro. You're really owning him for his attacking returns. So he's a great asset. That surprised no one, I think, that assist.
Yeah. I think it could have been more if you were dreaming of a little bit more based on Munoz. And this fixture run is also good for Palace. Potentially they will get a clean sheet or two, and you can hope that he gets another attacking return or two as well. Let's transition. There was a team that didn't get attacking return, and that was my Chelsea Blues in front of the home crowd. They lose 2-0 to Manchester City. Erling Haaland does not, in fact, tremble when he sees Cucurella. I think that's the big takeaway of this match. Estrella or not, Cucurella cannot mark Erling Haaland one-on-one. He gets a goal, a yellow card, and 2 bonus. He ends up on 7 points. Again, that's really good if you skipped Haaland to just have 7 points for the 15 million man, where Mo Salah is getting double that, 14 points. That's a big win. And I think it's not crazy to think about maybe doing a hokey dokey and just getting Holland in and maybe moving off Salah for the short term for this Ipswich fixture and then swapping right back because you're already so far in the black when it comes to points in hand. So that's one to monitor. And then my big takeaway in this game was that Chelsea looked okay. They actually won on XG, which is the most Chelsea thing to do. But that Gvardiol from City was not as advanced as many were predicting. And this was in the ether before this game started. He gets the clean sheet. He does get a bonus point. So he ends up on 7 points all out. But Rico Lewis was the one who was inverting and really getting into attacking positions on the right-hand side. He's 4.5 million. He got 6 points. So he could be a very popular pick if you are looking for a discount way into arguably one of the best defenses in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who own Kwanzaa are looking at switching to Rico Lewis, especially for that Ipswich at home game. You know, I'm tempted by it, but I'm also not because you're basically swapping a rotation risk for another rotation risk. You know, Rico Lewis is amazing. Pep loves him, but it would be typical of Pep to bench him after giving him so much praise the week before. But I do think for the Ipswich game, he will start. So I don't mind that move. But, you know, just be aware that you're basically switching rotation for rotation. And I agree with you, by the way, about Chelsea. I think a lot of people are looking at the results. But if you actually watched that game, Chelsea looked a lot improved. They were doing some really nice build up from the back. They were creating chances. I think they just have so many players right now. No one knows who their best 11 is. No one knows who's going to play minutes and who isn't. I think they just need to get an idea of who their best 11 is, get some consistency there, and I think they're actually going to be okay.
Yeah, I think they'll be good, but again, it's just hard for fans to know what the fuck is going on at
Exactly.
Cobham and in the Chelsea leadership because all these signings and all these overlapping positions. I mean, it's been said many times, but we have 8 goalkeepers in the first team and 40 odd players. I mean, we have so many wingers on the left, on the right. It's just there's no clear plan on how we're going to make all these players operate together. We have 4 full starting 11s, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So, and we're not in UCL. So, yes, there's going to be Thursday football, but you don't need all these players, all these bodies on a team. And you need to be able to reward the breakout stars like Cole Palmer with regular minutes. So, it's just becoming hard to predict how a player like Jao Felix, who came in today, is going to get any minutes. And so it just makes the spending spree seem very odd.
Yeah, I think you made a good point just then too about the Thursday fixture, the qualification game. I think we should keep a very close eye on that game because it will give us an idea of who's likely to start in the Premier League against Wolves at the weekend. So I've definitely got a close eye on that. I know Nkunku came off early before 60. If he starts on Thursday, I'd be quite worried. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I think that is a big bugaboo fixture. That Thursday play-in, there will be 2 of those in the next couple weeks, and it's going to be a distraction for sure. And this is a time to start hot in the Premier League with the fixtures that Chelsea have from game week 2 to game week 7. You really want to see them focused primarily on getting results to climb the table there. But yeah, we got the podcast derby in game week 2, Wolves and Chelsea. I don't know which of us is dreading that match more, but let's take 1 second and talk about the last match of the game week, which was Leicester hosting Spurs. This was a tale of 2 halves. If I was a Spurs fan, like Football is Life, Jamie Pagot, who's former champion and guest of this pod last season, he's a great lad. He was tripled up on Spurs, and I thought he was going to throw a little party in our mini chat when the first half was going on. He was already counting a haul for Son and for Solanke, and Poro gets the goal. It looked like it could have been 3 or 4-0 in the first half. And I don't know what was in the bathrooms at the Leicester
I'll tell you
Stadium. I
what
don't
it
know
was.
what was
It
the
was Red Bull.
snack. It was so weird because a
It was Red
totally
Bull.
different Leicester and a totally different Spurs came out in the second half.
You saw Jamie Vardy, who came out at the second half sipping a Red Bull. That's what it was. You know that guy loves his Red Bull. But yeah, this was typical Tottenham. They were just dominating the first half. Sorry, they could have went 2 or 3 goals up. They missed a lot of chances, including Solanke. They let Leicester back into the game, and then they come away with 1 point when they could have won that game 3 or 4-0 easy. I think a
Yeah.
good takeaway from this game for me was they made a lot of subs in this game, including taking the likes of Sun off. They took Madison off. However, Solanke stayed on the entire time and played 90 minutes, and he looked pretty decent. He missed some chances, but he was getting in all of the right spots. So I think I'm quite confident owning him going forward.
Yeah, he's a fitness beast.
He
And
is.
I thought it was very notable, to your point, that he stayed on where all the other Spurs guys came off. I think that was a big vote of confidence from Ange. And I think all in all, he had a pretty good game. He had, I think, 4 or 5 shots on goal. He had that back post run where he took the header low. If he stands up and uses his feet, I think that's a goal and a really resounding impact on his debut. All in all, good performance from Spurs, but their defense is always going to leave you wanting. And that was so frustrating because honestly, Leicester should be kicking themselves that they didn't come out with the win because
For
Vardy should have
sure.
scored the second. And then he would have really been slagging the away fans, pointing at them, telling them how few trophies they have in their locker.
Yeah, speaking of shithousery, he is the ultimate shithouser. The way he was pointing at his badge and just saying 1 trophy and then 0 for you guys, just typical Jamie Vardy. But it's great to see him back in the Premier League, as much as I dislike the guy.
He gives us hope, man, because he's 38 and he's older than all 3 of the hosts, and he's still doing it in the top level. So don't give up if you are in trying on your fitness journey. If you are still a weekend warrior, there's hope for you, as proven by Jamie Vardy. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to fast forward and talk about the action to come in game week 2. We're back. Let's fire up the DVR and fast forward ahead to preview game week 2. Ideally, you have survived game week 1 without deleting your team, and you are not forced to immediately use a free transfer going into game week 2. And you're relatively well set up to continue the march and the marathon that is FPL. So let's do what we always do, Dan. Let's preview the best matches to target for FPL hauls. Where should we start?
I mean, I think there's a very, very obvious game here. It's Ipswich at Manchester City. I know we gave Ipswich some praise for how they played against Liverpool, but Man City at the Etihad is a different beast. I can't see anything other than a slaughter here. So I think, if you don't own Haaland in this game, you need to hide behind your sofa.
What about Foden? He came on and it looks like he could be fit to start in game week 2. Do you think maybe if you're swerving Holland, then using a free transfer to try and squeeze Foden in is a alternate strategy, or you don't rate that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are kind of scared to use transfers for game week 2 because they made their game week 1 team and the plan is to make that last at least 3 or 4 game weeks. However, I think personally, if you see a fixture like this, go ahead and target it. I don't see the problem. If you really think Foden is going to start this game and you want to bring him in for someone like Saka who has Aston Villa away and you think Foden's going to do better, go for it. I'm not one of these people who are like, no, don't make a transfer. If you feel like Foden's going to hold, go for it.
You're not clutching your transfer pearls, so to speak, Dano?
I'm not. I mean, my aim was to not make a transfer, and I'm going to still try and do that. We'll talk about my team later. But I think, like I said, if you really think a player is going to haul in this game, go for it. I know we're talking to FPL Dallas in the group chat, the madman that joined our pod last season. He really has a feeling about Rico Lewis, but everyone's
I
trying to
brought
talk
that
him.
up. I think I
Yeah,
incepted him.
everyone is trying to talk him out of it. But I'm like, if you feel like he's going to get a clean sheet and haul in this game, go for it. Why not?
I totally agree. And I actually think that we should cut to the brass tacks in what our prediction is, because I think this has at minimum 4-0 to City written all over it. I mean, yes, the Etihad has a reputation for not being the best venue and the noisiest, but in front of the home crowd, after being quadruple champions, I think Manchester City are going to feast. And I actually think that there is reason to consider triple captain Erling Haaland in this match because he is fit. He has no other commitments and distractions such as UCL. And I expect Foden's going to start. I expect that KDB is going to start. It's all systems go, and it's all signs pointing to feeding the Norwegian beast and getting him as many goals as possible this season. So I've at least toyed with it. I'm weighing it up, so to speak.
Oh, you are? Wow. I mean, I think it's a fine choice. A lot of people like to get the chips out of the way early. And as far as single game weeks go, I think this is one of the best we're going to have all season. I do like to save it for a double game week myself, although we do know there's likely less of them this season. So why not? If you feel like going for Haaland, go for it. I'm trying to play FPL a little bit more freely this season. We'll see how
Yeah,
that goes.
take the training wheels off, baby, and you're a full on American now. No more of this British
Ooh, I
pragmatism from
wouldn't go
you.
there. I wouldn't go there.
We've co-opted and we've claimed you, Dan, whether you like it or not. What's your prediction here? 4-0, more or less?
I was going to say 4-0.
Yeah. You think Rico Lewis starts? Let's just get you on record here.
I do think he starts. I think Kyle Walker is a bit of an issue for him, but he played so well the last game. I think he might start this game.
I actually think he starts too, but I'm nervous because Pep gave him such outlandish praise, and
Exactly.
he normally only does that when he's trolling. Like he's like, "Oh, Enzo Maresca, what a great manager! He has it all figured out at Chelsea." He just went in there and calmly kicked our butts up and down the pitch. So Pep has a reputation of doing the nice backhander. So he'll say something nice only to then slap you on your tush.
Yeah, it's
Pull a
what
mascara. Pull a mascara, right?
there you go. It's what I alluded to earlier. I think if you know Rico Lewis is starting this game, go for it. He'll be a great asset. But there's always that doubt in the back of your mind that Pep's going to just praise the hell out of this guy and then bench him for Kyle Walker. And, Rico Lewis won't feel too bad about it because he just got this insane praise from Pep. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, and he's a true pup from the City Academy. Next match that I think has Hall potential written all over it is Everton at Spurs. Now, Everton's attack look woeful. Their defense doesn't look much better. And Spurs can't defend, but I think the home crowd will push them to a better result than we saw on the road against Leicester. I think this is 3-0 to the home team. I think we're looking at big returns for both of these home teams in this game week 2 fixtures.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Everton will score, though. I just don't trust Tottenham defense whatsoever. So I'm going to say 3-1.
Who gets the goal? You think DCL, the man wrapped in bandages,
Pickford.
gets it?
Pickford gets it.
Wow.
Yeah,
No, that's like
DCL. DCL
McNeil.
probably.
You're really saying McNeil. I know what you mean.
Yeah, there you go.
The best matches in real life are not necessarily the best for FPL, but we want to touch on the hardcore FPL managers. We want to touch on casuals who are just looking to increase their love and devotion to the Premier League this season. And I think there are two standout matches. I actually think the slate in game week 2 is quite interesting. There are some derbies. There are some interesting fixtures abound, but the two that are, I think, most juicy for the neutral is Arsenal at Aston Villa. Unai Emery pulled the double over Arsenal last season, probably caused them to not win the title based on those results specifically. And again, Villa win, Arsenal win. They do it in different fashion, but this has heavyweight bout written all over it. So do you have a prediction here?
Yeah, I know it's at Aston Villa, but I think Arsenal are just going to be too strong for them. I think this is going to be a 3-1 to Arsenal. That's what I'm predicting.
Damn you, Dan. We're sharing notes here because I'm also 3-1 to Arsenal. I think it's going to be 2-0, pretty comfortable going into like the 70th minute. And either there's a penalty or Villa just nick one, and then Arsenal regain focus and they end the game pretty strong and get a safety goal. 3-1 to the
We are
Gunners.
sharing notes because that's exactly what I was thinking. I really think that's how the game will go.
Wow, we are in sync. Maybe we should get more FPL points with this connection. Let's
Maybe.
aim to do better than 4 million for next game week. Last but not least, we got to touch on the podcast Pedro Neto Derby. It is Chelsea coming to your Wolverhampton Wanderers, the Wolves. Who's leaving the pup den with 3 points?
I think this is going to be a tie. I think Wolves get points here.
Wow.
1-1.
1-1. Sheesh, Luis. I think it's 2-1 to Chelsea, but I'm not going to even hide the fact that I'm insanely biased towards my Chelsea Blues. And I cannot stand watching another match where I have to explain to my daughter that we didn't score any goals. So let's go, Chelsea. Come on, baby.
You know,
Pedro Neto gets a return here just to twist the knife.
I was going to say I'm very curious to see if he starts Pedro Neto in this game, just because he's so familiar with Wolves, he's so familiar with Molineux. I wouldn't be surprised if Neto starts this game.
He looked fit when he came on. I
He's
was
very
kind of
fit.
shocked that he didn't start game week 1, but I guess that's more of system trust from
Yeah.
Enzo Maresca than anything else. But I think with a week of training, he's just so much better than the other options we have at left wing. All right, let's go. This is a new segment. I want to start dropping this in every game week. Top 3 captaincy picks. I think Holland is a pretty obvious, clear number 1. Who's 2 and 3 for you, Dan?
For me, it would have to be a second asset from Man City, depending on who starts that game. I don't know if we're going to get early team news or not. So that kind of throws a spanner in the works. But I think if Foden is going to play this game and start it, he is the clear number 2 behind Haaland. For number 3 is more up in the air for me. I'm not against going against a Man City defender as captaincy. I'm really not. But I also like players on Spurs. I think Solanke is a good captaincy option. Son. And I also like an outside shout of someone like Muniz for Fulham at home to Leicester. I know Leicester played okay first game of the season against Tottenham today. I know they didn't look that bad, but away from home against Fulham, I just think Fulham will win that game comfortably.
So you're going to be captaining Rico Lewis in game week 2, is what I heard.
That's what
Or
you
just
heard.
Dallas. Just Dallas is insane enough to make a move of that nature, right?
Exactly. I think if you own Gvardiol, I think if you want a really outside wild pick for a captain, I wouldn't mind going there with him. Because I think it's a guaranteed clean sheet. I know I could be wrong here. They're going to concede after 5 minutes, but it's as close to a guaranteed clean sheet as we're going to see all season.
Yeah, it's the best odds by far. All right, let's go to community questions. Thank you to our listeners, to anyone who follows us on social media for getting involved in our chats, in our DMs, just on social, responding to our posts. We really appreciate it. And you guys are the lifeblood of our podcast. This is the interaction and engagement that helps fuel our little pet project. So thank you for that. Starting off with at Barrister FPL, aka Jeremy. Hope you enjoyed being at the Emirates for your first time to watch your Gunners play and beat Dan's Wolves. Sorry, Dan. He's asking what to do with Christopher Nkunku. Hold the faith. Hold the faith. I think he
Yeah.
starts. He's one of the best players on Chelsea. He can get 25 to 30 goal involvements. He's proven that before. It's one game, and the most important thing is fitness for the guy, is what he said. So I just think there's a lot of optimism that with one more week of training, he'll start against Wolves, maybe in the 10 as opposed to Enzo, who looked totally out of place there. And with a more advanced and more central role, I think you can get a lot from 6.5 million in Kunku.
I think you have to hold him. Let's be honest here. People that started with Nkunku, including myself, we were not looking at him getting a lot of points this first game against Man City. We were kind of hoping he might get a random goal or something like that, but we really brought him for the next run of fixtures. So you have to stick with it. Yes, if he doesn't play versus Wolves or if he gets subbed super early again, then you can start debating, is there a better asset to move him to with 2 free transfers? But you have to give him at least another game or two before you make that decision. And that kind of ties into Paz's question too, because he said, what do you need to see from Nkunku so he stays in your team game week 3? I think we're going to have to see a good amount of minutes against Wolves. We're going to have to see that Maresca doesn't completely rotate the squad. Because if there's just too much rotation, if we don't know if Nkunku is going to play every game, then I just don't think he's worth even 6.5 million. I think there's better, more nailed options at that price point.
I agree, but I want to take it a step further. I think we'll know from the lineup reveal in game week 2 if he's worthwhile as an FPL asset, because if he starts centrally as the 10, he will be potentially a game breaker. I know there were a lot of plaudits given to that term in preseason where he was impressing. He had 3 goals in 3 matches, but he did take penalties. I skipped him because of this Manchester City fixture, and he's actually one of the players that I'm nervous about going into game week 2 for the next couple of fixtures because 6.5 million, he has double digit potential for FPL if he's playing in the right spots. And
He does.
that's unknown. That's just the nature of Chelsea right now. When you have 40 players, a new coach, a new system, it's I want to pretend that I'm more in the know than most, but only Maresca and God know how Chelsea are going to line up in game week 2.
I mean, I would be a little concerned though, even if he starts against Wolves, if he comes off before 60 again for the second game in a row, I think there's enough concern there for me to at least consider other options. Although I would recommend holding him for 3 game weeks and then deciding. That's my
Totally
opinion.
agree. Let's go to Andrew Steinberg. He's asking about Rico Lewis. Is it his year? And is he a must get for this fixture at 4.5 million if you're a Kwanzaa owner like many in the community?
I think we need more information. If we see that Kyle Walker leaves for Saudi or something like that, then yes, I think Rico Lewis is a great option. For as long as Kyle Walker is at the club, I am not confident in Rico Lewis getting consistent starts. I think he's going to get more minutes this season than he's ever got. Pep loves him. He's an excellent player. I think he could even oust Kyle Walker as the number one choice at some point. However, again, I just don't trust Pep rotating this position over and over and over again, especially when the Champions League starts. So I need more information before I would make that decision.
Yeah, and this is one of the kind of interesting wrinkles of the FPL and the Premier League season is that kickoff of the year starts before the transfer window closes. So there's still lots of uncertainty at a lot of clubs about who is the nailed on starting 11 and which positions are worth taking a risk, like backing a guy like Tino Livramento, like Rico Lewis, or in 2 weeks' time, when game week 4 rolls around, are we going to be talking about Kieran Trippier and Kyle Walker once again? There's still lots of unknown and lots of transactions to happen to kind of let us know how this Premier League season and FPL season are going to shape up.
I agree. Going on to the next question from my Cayman fan, Matt. He asks, what are your thoughts on the Kwanzaa situation? Dead as a pick or in for redemption? I mean, for me, I think I am most worried about Kwanzaa in my team because of just that uncertainty of is he going to play? Yes, he could start the Brentford game. It could have just been um, Slot just making a point here and he ends up playing the next game. But there's enough doubt in my head now to consider not wanting to have this guy in my team long term. And he's also, like I said earlier, the closest player to a price drop. If you're okay to eat that price drop and make a few transfers in a couple of game weeks to reorganize your team, fine. But if you're someone that maybe has a very weak defensive bench this week, like maybe you have Barco, maybe you have Harwood Bellis, maybe you have Kwanzaa, you have a whole bunch of budgets, I don't mind moving him to another 4.5 before the price drop.
I'm one of those woeful managers that has no bench cover. I have Kwanzaa and then I have Barco and Ben Johnson, neither of whom featured
There you go.
in game week 1. So I'm a little screwed here. And I want to just shout out the Always Cheating podcast. Josh and Brandon are fellow members of hashtag FPL USA, and they do a great job on their pod. They shouted out this fact in preseason that any zero point 0.1 million drop at the beginning of the season is really equivalent to 0.5 million because you all of a sudden can't get any 4.5. You have to go 4 million. And that could be a big momentum killer when you're looking at your planned transfers in game week 3 or game week 4 if you are trying to swerve an early wild card. So I think for managers like me who have no coverage, Kwanzaa is a must sell going into game week 2, even on the odd chance that he does start that match at home against Brentford. Just the uncertainty and the potential price drop are enough to motivate you and push you over the edge on having to kind of trigger that free transfer. I don't like it. And I think there's maybe a 30% chance Kwanzaa maintains his spot. And this was just a listen, kid, this is how we do things under my
Yeah.
new tenure. But the risk is just too large. And honestly, that Brentford match doesn't look as good, having seen Embuemo and the way that he's starting the season. So yeah, a lot of red flags going
Yeah.
off, a lot of
And
alarm bells for
yeah,
Kwanzaa owners.
I don't like this, Books. We're agreeing too much again because I completely agree with you. I think people in your position, I think you have to move him on. You're going to be fucked otherwise.
Yeah.
Me, I'm less fucked because I went with Robinson as another 4.5. So I could just bench Konza this week, which I was actually going to do anyway, and play Robinson, Gabriel, and Pedro Porro. Although I don't like the idea, like you said, of losing point 0.1 after the first game week, because that really is going to screw you over when you're going into wildcard season. So I'm undecided on this.
All right, so let's just, this isn't one of the questions, but I'm going to throw it in because I think it makes a lot of sense and will be helpful for the managers that are considering the transfer. If you had to rank the 4.5 million defenders that are options and you're moving off Kwanzaa, you're set on it. You have to make this move and you're going to press the yes, confirm the transfer. What's your top three? I have my top three.
I think my top three would be Robinson, or as you like to call him, Jedi, at Fulham for 4.5 because they're playing Leicester at home. And I
Yeah.
think I also like Lewis Dunk and Esri Konza as the other two because they have decent fixtures coming up and they also rotate nicely. So I think they would be my clear top three.
Wow, clear top three.
Yeah.
Sheesh. I like that you've well and put the
I'm not sitting on
fence
the fence
sitting
anymore.
in the rear view mirror, Dan. I have to give you a golf clap and
Thank
respect
you. I was
for
starting to get
coming on here.
splinters. I was getting splinters on my peachy bit.
Yeah, we don't want that. We want you to have a nice, clean shaven tush. I think I'm Jedi as well as my number one. I really liked what I saw from Hall. I think Lewis Hall will be a great pick for managers that went there to start the season. He's my second choice. And listen, if you are a risk averse manager, Rico Lewis should not be on your radar. But if you are looking to go Bucks wild and potentially have fun and target the halls, Rico Lewis offers all of that in bunches. So he's my third choice. He's not my first choice for those reasons because of the uncertainty of the minutes, whether he's going to be the starter. And if he's not the starter, he's probably not getting any FPL points. So then it's another transfer. But I think Robinson, he's the most nailed. They have the fixtures, but the Fulham defense, I don't know if they could be really trusted despite the green patch of fixtures.
I mean, I think this is a great way to end community questions because Alessandro, aka FPL Dallas, loves Rico Lewis. He really wants to make the Kwanzaa to Rico Lewis transfer. However, a lot of people are warning him off it because of Kyle Walker. His response, this wasn't really a question, is when Steve Jobs invented the iPhone, he had no idea if it was nailed. He was scared that BlackBerry was nailed and the iPhone would be a high X minix risk. However, by taking a chance on the iPhone, he was able to tap into high upside and benefit enormously. That's Dallas's extremely weird way of saying go for Rico Lewis for the upside, regardless of if you think Kyle Walker is nailed or not. I love it.
I'm glad he kept it at least relatively current with Steve Jobs. I thought you might be going back and referencing George Washington Carver with his peanut butter obsession and telling us that, chunky is superior to smooth because back in the olden days, they couldn't make it totally smooth because they didn't have AI and robots
Yeah,
helping with the process. So I don't know if I take anything away from this Steve Jobs analogy, but I do think Rico Lewis is an exciting kind of player when you know that Manchester City play Ipswich in the upcoming fixture. Exciting doesn't always mean good. It could be, exciting because, you were walking and all of a sudden a rainstorm came out of nowhere and, it was just notable. So again, I think Rico Lewis, he's the most risky of the bunch, but he probably has the highest ceiling. I think that's safe to say.
agreed. Agreed.
Low floor, high ceiling kind of guy, which has Bucks Wild written all over
Yeah,
it,
it
doesn't it?
does. He's going to be in your team at this end of this game week. I know it.
Oh, I know. I can't. I'm like, I can't help myself. It's too alluring. It could be so good. It could be, but it
Yeah,
probably is more pain.
I think that's a really good time to transition into the final segment of our podcast, which is where we are going to discuss our plans for game week 2. So, Bucks, I think we should go ahead and go with your team first.
Yeah. So I'm going to be starting and captaining Erling Holland. No surprise there. I think I'm pretty well set up for game week 2. 10 out of 11 spots. I have Kwanzaa, I have Barco, and I have Johnson. I think in a perfect world, I would like to hope that Barco is going to be fine and he starts and there I could roll the transfer. But we live outside the matrix. We live in the messy real world and it's not perfect here. And there's a lot of room for improvement. I was hoping to keep it easy and just go Jedi, but that's not the kind of manager I am. I think I will be going Kwanzaa to Rico Lewis by midday tomorrow as I'm eating lunch. I will make that move and I will just lock in and pray to the sporting gods that that move turns out for at least 2 or 3 game weeks. And I think that, oh, it would be such a blessing to managers if an offer comes in for Kyle Walker in the next 48 hours. That would be such a gift from
It
the
would.
heavens. But Holland captain, potentially triple captain, and I will be
Ooh.
going Kwanzaa to Rico Lewis. That's my plan. Let's go to you, Dan.
Nice. So for me, I'm going to hopefully play the same team I did for game week 1. However, I will put Kwanzaa on my bench and bring in Robinson into my starting lineup. I already have him waiting there for that Leicester at home fixture. I do have Gabriel away to Aston Villa. However, I would not be surprised for Arsenal to come away with a clean sheet there. I know I said I think Aston Villa will score, but there's every chance they don't. I think that fixture is just as good as all the other fixtures. And then I have Pedro Porro, who is at home to Everton. And I know he got injured at the end of the game today, but it looked like he was about to run it
He'll be
off. So I
fine.
think he'll be okay.
Fine. He was
I think
ready to
he'll be fine.
celebrate if Spurs won that game. He was peak
Exactly.
ready to celebrate.
My captain will be Haaland. So for me, the only real decision is, do I want to use a transfer to swap Kwanzaa out for someone else so I don't lose the 0.1? I haven't decided yet. I think it's likely I won't do it.
I have a question for you, Dan. Have you weighed up a more sideways move, which is to bring some money into the bank for future transfers, like going Kwanzaa down to your boy Mosquera?
No.
You want someone who's going to contribute and potentially have points if you make a move at all.
Yes, exactly. I think if I make a move this game week, it has to be someone who I think can get points immediately, because I would prefer to have at least 2 free transfers next week so I can maybe readjust a couple of spots if I want to, especially when we get to game week 3 and game week 4 when the fixtures really change and I decide not to play my wild card or not. So that's what I'm going to go with.
Okay, I love it. Brian is phoning in from a destination unknown over our great United States of America. He's saying that he's going to be rotating 2 players into a starting 11. He's going to have Smith Rowe and Jedi Robinson come in for the home fixture against Leicester, and he's going to bench Morgan Rogers and Lewis Hall for their more difficult fixtures in game week 2. I think that's the right move, and he's well positioned to roll his transfer into game week 3, as opposed to my dumbass who is forced into an early transfer, which no one likes to see. So, yeah, good on you, Brian. He's also going to be captaining Erling Haaland because he has him in his squad. So this is the man to, I think he's so clearly the best captain in game week 2. I'm almost willing to say that you could just book that he's going to get at least a goal in game week 2 against Ipswich. Hold me accountable if he doesn't.
I hope so. And that's a pod, Bux.
Yeah, you can find us on social. We're at FPLUSA Press Play. We hope that you are enjoying the start to the FPL season. But if you haven't yet joined our free to enter prize league, code is T88F87. The overall winner will get a free kit at the end of the season. And the top point scorer each and every game week will get a shout out here on our humble podcast. I am FPL USA Bux. For my co-host Blackwolf, this has been a really fun pod. Dan, where can they find you? And then get us the hell out of here.
You can find me on the usual social platforms at FPL_Blackwolf. And I am currently at 3.6 million, so I'm looking forward to getting a green arrow next week. That's the best thing about having a shitty game week 1. The only way is up, I hope, Bucks.
Yeah, we're going to be climbing those ranks like we're professional Sherpas in game week 2. Ain't that the truth?
That is the truth.
All right. Thank you for listening. Great pod, Dan. And we'll be back with you. Regular scheduled programming with all 3 hosts for a game week 2 recap and a game week 3 preview next week. Thanks, everyone.